Okay, I'm just going to try and do redo video number 2 there, and this time with new software so that we'll have the drop down menus. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more, it'll be a little clearer. So I'm going to start by opening that PDF file. Now I've got to do a couple of steps because of the way my Photoshop is set up, so you don't have to worry about this. I've got to make sure that the mode is RGB color because I have it typically set to grayscale, and I have to change the canvas size. Yeah. I'm just going to make it 8 by 8 for reasons you'll see now in a sec. So you can see I just made my canvas size a little bit bigger because by default my canvas size is set to suit to exactly match the drawing that's coming in. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do is, you might remember I said this before, that when we bring the PDF in, the lines can look very, very light, maybe too light to work with. So I'm going to duplicate that layer. There's a few different ways I can do that. I'm just going to do this basic way, and I'm going to duplicate it 3 or 4 times. As you can see, as I'm doing it, I hope you can see it on the screen there, that the lines are getting darker. So I've got a much darker drawing. Now I'm going to select, by holding down Shift, I'm going to select all of these layers and merge them so that they're all one layer. And now I'm going to call this drawing. So I have my drawing. Now remember, in this layer, all I've got is lines. I have nothing else. I don't have any paper. When you see that little checkerboard, that just means that you've got lines. So that's on the top layer. Now I'm going to make a background layer, new layer, okay. I'm going to call this paper because I'm always using the lines to cut the paper. And then I'm going to drag paper below drawing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that paper white. I'm going to give it pixels. I'm going to turn it into paper if you like. So my swatch over here is already selected to white, and I'm going to use my paint bucket and I'm going to make that piece of paper white. So now I've got a drawing and I've got a white piece of paper. So I'm good to go. 2 main layers. Now what I'm going to focus on is just this bedroom up here. So what I want to do is start off with the wall, and I'm going to paint it. So making sure drawing is selected, I go to my magic wand tool, I select the wall, and then I select this part of the wall which is under the bed, and I select this part of the wall which is between the bed and the nightstand. And then I go down to paper, because remember I want to cut the paper. If I try to do this on the drawing layer, it won't do anything because the drawing layer is only a bunch of lines. If I want to cut something, I have to be cutting pixels. So I get down to paper, then I go back up to the area that's highlighted, because if I want to perform this function, I have to have my cursor in that area. So I right click and I choose layer via copy. Layer via copy. So it's made a layer for me, and I'm going to call it wall. So if I turned off paper and if I turned off the drawing, you can see I just have my wall highlighted. So I'm going to click on wall. I'm going to come over here to my color swatch, press on it, and I'm going to choose a color that I might want to paint this wall. That's about right there. Doesn't really matter. Choose OK. I'm making sure that my correct layer is selected here. It has to be wall. Don't be painting everything else. I'm going to go up to the paint bucket, and then I'm going to press on my wall, and I get a green wall. Now that's a bit juicy, that color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to, by pressing on wall, I'm going to go up to fill, and I'm just going to bring it down a little so it looks a tiny bit subtler. Okay, that'll do me. So now I've got a wall. Next thing I'm going to do is this mattress. I'm going to color the mattress. So selecting drawing and my magic wand tool, I come down to the mattress. There we go. I go down to the paper because I want to cut a mattress out of the paper. I go back up to my mattress because if I'm not within this area, it won't perform the function that I want. So I choose layer via copy. I have a new layer down here, it's called layer 1 again. I'm going to call this mattress. So there we go, I have a mattress. Now by clicking on mattress, I'm going to give it a color. I'll come over here to my little color swatch area and I'm going to make it a purpley pinky color. Something like that maybe. So that'll do me for now. And I'm going to go up to my paint bucket. And then by making sure that I'm on mattress, I click on the paint bucket and I've got a nice colored mattress. I'll bring the fill down on that just a tiny little bit because it just looks a bit too much. Now the one other thing that I might do is the little lampshade here. I'm going to give that lampshade a little color. So I go back up to drawing. I go back over to my magic wand. I click on the no, that's not the magic wand. Go back up to the magic wand. I click on the lampshade. I can add to paper. Go back up to the lampshade. I click layer via copy. I get a new layer over here. I call it lampshade. Now I'm going to give the lampshade a color. I'll give it some sort of yellowy color. Maybe something like that. Okay, so go back up to my paint bucket, making sure that lampshade is selected because I don't want to be painting anything else. I give it a bit of a color and that'll do me. Okay, so there what I was doing was I was cutting out pieces of paper and coloring them. By cutting them out and making them separate, it means I can change them individually without changing the entire drawing. That's why we work in layers. It's important to get that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I want to work on the headboard and the nightstand, but I want to make them into, I want to make them, give them a timber texture. So I'm going to go to the internet and I am going to look up timber for Photoshop, which is something you'll be doing a lot of because it's a very standard thing we do. I'm going to choose images. I'll scroll down and I see if I can find something I like. And this is the one I was using before. Click on it. I'm going to click copy the image. Go back to Photoshop. Go back up to edit. Choose paste. There it is. It shows up as a layer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the layer below the drawing. So now I can see the layer, but I can also see the drawing, which means that I can use the drawing as a pattern. Okay, now in this instance what's happening is instead of cutting from the paper and coloring it in a color, I'm actually going to cut from the timber. It's the same thing. I'm using the drawing as a pattern, but I'm going to cut some timber. Now I'm going to choose drawing. I'm going to use my quick selection tool. I'm going to choose the areas that I want to turn into timber. They would be the headboard, the bed, the nightstand, and the legs to the bed. Now, so I've selected the areas that I want using the drawing. Now I'm going back down to layer 1, which is the timber layer. I'm going to select layer via cut this time, not layer via copy, layer via cut. Layer 2 is the layer that has all the stuff on it that I want. I'm going to call that timber. Layer 1 doesn't have anything on it that I want, so I'm just going to put that in the bin. So now I've got everything that I want. Now the next thing I'm going to do is put a piece of artwork on the wall. So I'm going to type in Brack and up comes some pictures, and I'll just take anything that looks okay, which is a bit of a challenge considering it's Brack. Let's take this fella here. Okay, so I copy that image, back in Photoshop, edit, paste, in it comes. Okay, I'm going to choose the move and transform tool up here, and I click on the layer, I click on the drawing, and it's a bit big, so I'm just going to make it, it's a bit big, so I'm just going to make it a bit smaller. There we go. I'll put it above the bed. There we go. Now, in order to make this look like it's sitting a little bit proud of the wall, I'm just going to choose it. First of all, I'm going to give it a name. So I go over here to layer 1. I'm going to call it Brack, B-R-A-Q-U-E. So now it knows it's Brack. That means that it's very easy for me to identify layers in future, because I can just see the names of them and I know which one is which. So Brack. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to layer, choose layer style, and then drop shadow. Now when I do that, a little box comes up and it allows me to put a shadow in behind my artwork. Now I'm going to move, if I turn the dial up here, it'll change the angle of the shadow, so somewhere about there might be about right. That looks okay. That's a bit too exaggerated, and the spread is, it's a bit, I'll keep it down to a minimum. So now I have some artwork on the wall and it looks like it's standing proud. Now you could imagine you could do exactly the same thing with the bed if you wanted to. I'm just not going to bother for the time being. The last thing I'm going to do here is just add a shadow to give the room some depth. So the way I do that is I'm going to go back up to my drawing, because remember I always use the drawing as my pattern. Then I'm going to choose, in this time I'm going to choose the polygonal lasso tool. So it's not the quick select tool, but the polygonal lasso tool. I go up to the corner, and by holding, oh, that's not very nice. I go up to the corner, and by holding down, that's not great either, do it again. By holding down shift, it'll give me a straight line. So I'm going to come down in a straight line, across in a straight line, down in a straight line. Now when I get down to the bed stand, I'm going to cheat a little bit, because the bed stand's a little closer to me and the shadow isn't so far back. And then all I have to do is just come back to my original point, and the selection tool knows that it sort of completes the loop for me. So now that's where the shadow is going to fall. But I need the shadow to fall on a piece of paper. So what I'm going to do is I use the drawing layer to shape it, but I'm going to cut it from the paper. So go down to paper, go back over to the area that I'm interested in, choose layer via copy. So you'll see down here I've created a new layer 1. I'm immediately going to call that shadow. So it's a shadow layer. Now because I want to see this, I have to make sure that it's up near to the top, because in order to be able to see things they have to be close to you, because layers conceal whatever's beneath it. So now I have it up underneath the drawing. I usually keep the drawing right at the very top, and the shadow now is going to be black or dark. So I go over to my little color swatch, choose black, choose OK. Then making sure that I have the shadow layer selected, I go up to the paint bucket and I paint the shadow layer black. Okay, too dark. Now what I do here is I'm going to bring the opacity down on that layer, and down it comes, and now it looks to me like I have a pretty decent little bedroom. Now what I might just do is go back to the timber layer there, the one that's the headboard and the bed, and I might just drop a shadow on that, just a tiny little one. So layer, layer style, drop shadow. As you can see, it is dropping a shadow for me, but it's a bit too exaggerated for me. I'd like to just get it as subtle as possible. I might live with something like that. Maybe not. Think about it. It can look a little bit too cartoonish. Okay, that'll do me. Now, there are two things I'm going to do. I'm going to save this as an AutoCAD, as a Photoshop file, because I want to be able to open this exact file again with all of the layers the way they are if I ever want to edit it or make changes. So I'm going to call it section, and it'll be a Photoshop file or a PSD file. So this just means that if I ever want to, if I want to do more, if I want to add to it, I can open this file and all my layers are there, all my choices are there, and I can switch things off and turn things on and do whatever I want. I can edit everything individually because I haven't damaged any of my layers. Now, the other thing though I might want to do is, let's say I just want to show this room in a presentation. What I'll do then is I'll just save the image that I have on the screen as a JPEG. So File, Save As. This time I'll choose JPEG, and I call it a section, and I'll choose Save. Gives me some options. Choose OK, and hopefully I'll have a JPEG. Now I'll just check that. Do I have a JPEG? Come on, come on. Oh, for heaven's sake, come on. Yeah, it looks like a JPEG, so there you go. Now that's precisely how you do a section, and you can see that just by adding or subtracting to the various different rooms, you can very, very quickly have a very convincing drawing. You'd add some people, flowers, bikes, kids, animals, sky, trees. You get all of that stuff off Photoshop and you include it into your drawing, and you can make your drawing look as realistic or as convincing as you want it to be. Okay, that's it. Talk to you later.